Hey, this is Friday of week 6. This is four voice class, and we are doing some deposition practice. We have Mr. Rosenthal for the plaintiff. Defense 1 is Mr. Bloomberg, and defense 2, Mr. Kane. Go ahead and identify.
I am the attorney for the plaintiff, Mr. Rosenthal.
I'm the witness.
I'm attorney for defense 1, Bloomberg.
Attorney for defense 2, Mr. Kane.
Appears to be Mr. Bloomberg starting.
Okay. I'm ready. It begins with a question by Mr. Bloomberg for the record. At the time of impact, did the impact occur in the number 1 lane or the number 2 lane?
Number 2 lane.
What part of your vehicle hit the number 1 car?
The front bumper, the left side of the front bumper.
And what part of the number 1 car did your car hit?
The trunk was damaged.
What part of the trunk was it? The center trunk, the right part of the trunk, the left part of the trunk, somewhere in between?
Between the center and the left side, as far as I recall.
So I want to make sure I understand what you're saying. Your left front of your car hit the center to left part of the car in front of you?
Right, because we were in the process of merging.
You stated that there was a third car involved in the accident.
Yes.
And you stated that you had stopped a few feet before the number 1 car and you were hit from behind by the number 3 car. Is that correct?
Yes.
What part of the number 3 car hit you?
As far as I recall, it was the front, the whole front.
Any of the sides?
No, just the front of vehicle number 3.
And was there damage to your car?
Yes.
Describing the rear damage at this point, can you please describe that for me?
Well, my vehicle was pushed by vehicle number 3 and the rear was damaged, the bumper and the tailgate. I was just turning.
Was it to the center or was it to the sides?
It wasn't the front of the vehicle. Number 3 hit the rear of my vehicle, so it was like the whole rear.
What I'm trying to determine is where, in fact, her car hit your car, and that's why I'm asking you what part of the rear of your car was damaged, if any.
It was just the rear. It was not like to the left or to the right. It was just the rear.
Did she hit you straight on?
Yes.
How fast was she traveling, if you know?
I don't know, but it was faster than me and the vehicle in front of me.
Are you talking about at the time of impact?
At the time of impact, did you hear any screeching brakes?
No.
Did you screech before hitting the first car?
I don't think so, because I was barely moving.
When the accident occurred, just seconds before the impact, was your foot on the brake or on the gas?
It was on the brake because I was slowing down, watching the vehicle in front of me to see what his intentions were. So when he stopped, I tried to stop before hitting him.
Who hit who first? Did the number 3 car hit you first and you hit number 1, or did you hit number 1 and number 3 hit you?
As far as I recall, I got hit from the rear and I was stopped, but that happened instantaneously. So I was like hit from the rear and pushed because I was maybe a foot away from the front of the vehicle.
Am I correct to say you were hit from the rear, which pushed your car into the number 1 car?
Yes.
Did you see the number 3 car in your rear view mirror?
From far away I saw it because I was watching my mirrors, but not just before the accident.
You stated you were traveling southbound on Tampa. Can you give me an approximation of how long the number 3 car was traveling in back of you, if it was, in fact, in back of you?
I know there was vehicles behind me, but when I was aware of the cars at the point of impact, it wasn't right directly behind me.
Did you ever give a statement to this office?
I never did.
Could I hand you a copy of a document? Do you recognize this document?
Yes.
For the record, this is a 2-page document. On top it says, your client, Otto Linen, and on the back there is a description or diagram. On the very bottom, there appears to be a signature. Is that your signature?
Yes.
Do you recall making this statement?
Yes.
Is that your handwriting?
Yes.
I'd like to have this entered as Exhibit 1 for the deposition.
Off the record. Back on the record. For the record, I'm going to interpose an objection to any reference being made to this statement or being attached as any exhibit based upon responses to interrogatories by plaintiffs who have indicated that there were no statements taken that I know of, and based on that, I'm going to object.
For the record, any objection as to proper admissibility will be decided in front of a tribunal or a judge in arbitration. On that basis, I will attach it as an exhibit and have a judge rule upon the admissibility when and if we get to that point.
Mr. Gibson, can you please tell me when this statement was made?
I'm not sure exactly, but that's when I received a letter from you.
Over a year ago? Would it be over a year ago?
I'm not sure.
Is there any statement in this statement that is untrue at this point?
No.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
When you asked me if I made a statement, I thought you meant if I made a statement here in the office. That's why I said I never did.
That's fine. That's understandable. We're not trying to trick you. If you have a question, any question, feel free to ask me, or of course, you can interrupt these proceedings and ask your attorney outside.
Because I was never here. That's why I said I never made a statement here.
At the beginning of the deposition, you stated that you were laid off.
Yes.
From whom were you laid off?
Rockwell International,
What did you do there?
truck driver,
And how long did you work for Rockwell?
since September 5th, 1985.
And were you driving a car owned by Rockwell at the time of the accident?
No, it was my personal vehicle.
Were you performing any function for your employer at the time of the accident?
No.
Did you consume any alcohol or drugs, whether it be prescriptive or non-prescriptive, within 24 hours prior to the accident?
No.
Did you suffer any injuries as a result of the accident?
No.
Did you suffer any property damage as a result of the accident?
Just my vehicle was damaged.
And how much damage was caused to your vehicle in monetary amounts, if you know?
It was estimated by State Farm Insurance at about, I think, $1,400 in damages.
Is State Farm your insurance carrier?
Yes.
Did State Farm pay for the property damage to your vehicle?
Yes.
Did you ever make a claim for damages you received from this accident from the third party?
No.
Why not?
Well, that is argumentative. I'll instruct him not to answer.
We can note for the record that there is a cross complaint for property damage against Ann Willard on file.
Have you been involved in any prior automobile accidents within the last 10 years?
I was, but I'm not sure if it was in the last 10 years.
Why don't you tell me about that accident?
The date I don't recall, but that was in the city of San Fernando. A lady went through a stop sign.
And hit you?
Well, it would have been a head-on collision, but I swerved, so it was just a scrape type thing.
Did you ever file suit against her to recover damages?
I tried to recover the damages, but she just disappeared.
Did you hire an attorney?
No,
Did you do it through your insurance company if you had insurance at the time?
I had insurance. I don't remember exactly because I don't remember when exactly.
The accident was over 5 years ago.
It had to have been,
You believe it may have been over 10 years ago?
possibly.
It was in the city of San Fernando.
That's where it happened.
Do you remember the streets it happened on?
It happened right on Fernando Road and Truman.
Other than this statement, have you provided any other written statements to any other person?
Not that I recall.
Did you ever provide a statement to your insurance company?
Yes,
Was it written? Do you know?
yes.
Did you ever provide a statement to Ms. Willard's insurance company or counsel?
I don't think so.
Did you ever take photographs of the accident site?
No,
Other than the diagram that you provided to our office, did you make any other diagrams?
to my insurance company.
Did you lose any time from work as a result of this accident?
No,
Do you believe that my client, meaning car number 1, was in any way at fault for this accident?
Well, I'll object. It's irrelevant because he's not going to be the ultimate trier of the fact.
I'm asking for the facts, not for the legal conclusions.
Sure, you're asking if he feels who's at fault for this accident. If you want to rephrase it,
Are you instructing your client not to answer?
that's correct.
I believe the question is proper as to his belief. I will rephrase it, though. Do you have any facts which would support your belief that my client was in any way at fault?
Again, if you want to rephrase it, do you have any facts to believe that the plaintiffs in this matter violated any vehicle code sections or in any way contributed in causing this accident?
I don't.
Who do you believe caused the accident?
Again, that's irrelevant, but if you want to answer, go ahead and answer it.
Vehicle number 3 behind me,
And why do you believe vehicle number 3 caused the accident based on the facts?
because that vehicle struck my vehicle and that pushed me forward.
At the time of the accident, right after impact, what happened? In other words, did you get out of your car? Did anyone from the car in front of you get out of the car or the car in back?
The vehicles were not moved. They stayed where they were. We all stepped out of our vehicles to exchange the information.
And I'm going to deal with car number 1 first. What statements were made to you from the drivers of car number 1 other than exchanging information?
We tried not to make any statements.
Did he say anything to you about anything other than, this is my insurance company, this is my address?
Well, I tried to find out about the insurance company. They had no information.
And what about car number 3? Did the driver of that car make any statements to you?
We tried to exchange the information only.
So did anyone say, for example, I'm sorry, I was at fault, or I didn't see, it was dark out, it was light out, it was purple out, anything?
No, the lady behind me tried to ask questions. I don't remember. The main concern for all of us was to exchange information.
What kind of questions did she try to ask, if you can recall?
I don't really, because I don't recall, so I'm not going to make a comment on that. We mainly tried to get information about insurance companies and get the plate numbers, the usual things. As far as whose fault was this, or I'm sorry, or this or that, there were no comments made like that.
Did anybody indicate that they were hurt?
What I saw only was that from car number 1, they walked out holding their necks, but that does not mean they were hurt. This is just what I saw.
Did they make any comments to the effect that their neck or back hurt?
No,
What about car number 3?
there was no comments about that.
Was car number 1 drivable after the accident?
All the vehicles were. They had to be because we all left the scene.
Were the police ever called?
Not by us, maybe by someone else, but there was no police at the scene.
No highway patrolman?
No.
I'll ask follow-up questions when you're done, just to let you know.
Can I make a small statement?
I'd prefer you didn't.
There's no questions pending.
I have no further questions. Mr. Kane?
Thank you very much. Good morning, Mr. Gibson. I've previously introduced myself as Attorney Harry Kane, and I represent the driver of car number 3 that was referred to in the accident, Ann Willard. I want to ask you some questions that will follow up the questions that Gail Bloomberg asked. I understand you had 2 passengers in your car with you at the time of this accident. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that was your son and your daughter?
Yes.
Were either of them injured in this accident?
No.
Did either of them make a claim of bodily injuries arising from the accident?
No.
Thank you. With respect to your driver's license, have you ever had your driver's license suspended or revoked in the last 5 years?
Never did.
And I have to ask you this question. Don't take any offense by it. We need to know if you've ever been convicted of a felony.
Never did.
Your diagram in the statement referred to by Ms. Bloomberg indicates that the lanes on southbound Tampa narrow from 3 lanes to approximately 1 lane at or near the point of impact. Is that an accurate statement?
No, there was 2 traffic lanes.
Okay, and were there 2 lanes for southbound traffic all the way through the intersection of Tampa and Devonshire at the time of the accident?
Okay, the lanes were marked again just at the intersection before. Where the accident happened, there was no marked lanes.
Was there room for 2 lanes to go southbound at that point where the accident happened, or is it nearer 1 lane?
There was room, but the traffic was going into 1 lane.
In the last block before the accident, I understand that there are 3 lanes for southbound travel on Tampa. What lane were you traveling in prior to changing into the number 2 lane and subsequently the number 1 lane? Were you in the number 3 lane?
Wait a minute, counsel.
Let me reword it.
Reword it and lay the foundation.
As you wish. There were 3 lanes southbound on Tampa prior to Devonshire, correct? Normally without the construction being there?
Right, normally there are 3 lanes.
At the time of the accident, at any time within the last 3 blocks, did you travel in the number 3 lane southbound?
I was in the number 2 lane.
Number 2 lane?
Right.
And at the time of the collision, were you in the process of making a lane change either into the number 1 or the number 2 lane?
I was in the number 2 lane. That's where I was.
Did you have your turn signal on at the time of impact?
No, because I was not changing lanes.
You were changing lanes?
I was not.
Were the plaintiffs changing lanes, the people in car number 1 prior to impact that you were aware of or in your perception and based upon your belief?
They were merging into the number 1 lane.
Okay. Plaintiffs were merging into lane number 1. Did they have a turn signal on when they were merging into the number 1 lane?
I don't recall it.
And you indicated that they stopped suddenly, which caused you to stop suddenly, which caused Ms. Willard to stop sort of suddenly.
That's correct.
You indicated also that it appeared that traffic was going through the intersection, but you don't recall the light. Is that also correct?
Correct.
Do you have any personal knowledge, or did you form any belief why car number 1 stopped prior to entering the intersection?
Maybe because it was not safe to merge gradually into the traffic.
How would you describe the traffic on southbound Tampa that fateful afternoon? Was it heavy at that intersection where the cars were merging right, or moderate, or any other word you care to use?
It was a Saturday afternoon, so the traffic wasn't heavy, but there were vehicles out there.
Were there vehicles stopped southbound in the intersection in the direction that you were traveling in front of the number 1 car?
No.
And you testified that you don't recall what color the light was, right?
Right.
Was there any construction going on in the area next to where you were merging to your right, where the number 3 lane would ordinarily be?
No, there was not.
Okay. In the 2 blocks before the point where the accident occurred, do you have any recollection what the speed limit is normally on southbound Tampa? Is it 35?
The posted speed limit?
Yes, sir, if you recall.
I think it's about 35 miles an hour, the posted speed limit.
Did the plaintiffs, the people in car number 1, have hazard lights on at the time that your car contacted theirs?
Prior to impact?
Prior to the impact.
I don't remember, but I don't think they did. There was no reason for that.
Fair enough. And did you see brake lights on car number 1 prior to impact that were operational?
I'm sure they were on, but I don't remember right now.
Well, I need you to specifically answer. Do you ever specifically recall the brake lights being operational on car number 1 prior to impact?
I don't know.
Okay. Now you've got a cross complaint for property damage that's filed by your attorney, Mr. Rosenthal. I want to ask you a few questions about your car. You said it was a 1968 Chevrolet Impala station wagon.
That's correct.
Do you still have possession of that vehicle?
No, I don't.
At the time of the accident, could you tell me approximately how many miles the odometer had on that vehicle? You can do it in a rough estimate. Is it 10,000, over 100,000, for example?
It is over 100,000.
How long had you owned that car at the time of the accident, approximately?
Approximately for about 10 years.
And were your brake lights operational at the date of the accident, if you know?
They were, because I always tried to keep it operational.
Were you the person responsible for maintaining your vehicle primarily?
I do it, yes.
Earlier, Ms. Blumberg asked you some questions about the estimate for property damage to your car. You indicated it was $1,400 by State Farm.
Approximately.
Approximately. Was your car ever repaired?
The car was not repaired. I retained a salvage.
Say that again. You retained a salvage?
Yes.
Does that mean the car was totaled and you retained a salvage title on the vehicle?
Right. The value of the vehicle was less than the damages.
I see. What was the amount that you were actually paid by State Farm for your damages? Was it just under $1,000 or was it some other number?
It was under.
Could you tell us approximately how much that money was?
I received approximately about $700.
Okay, thank you. And State Farm determined that can be the approximate fair market value of your vehicle at the date of the accident?
Actually, that's less salvage.
Less salvage. Do you know what the salvage value of your vehicle was?
It was $200, I think.
I'd like you, if you can, to describe the force of the impact between Ms. Willard's car and your own. Was it light, moderate, or severe?
It was severe because the station wagon is solid and the damages were great.
Was there any prior damage on the station wagon at the time of the accident in the area that it was damaged?
Not the area that was damaged.
Okay. When the people in the number 1 vehicle stopped, could you describe how they stopped in terms of characterizing it?
All right, this is more depot practice. This will be from our 200 take. And we're going to do this at 210 words a minute. Okay, we have Mr. Hawks for defense 2, Mr. Miller for the plaintiff, Mr. Charles for defense 1. So kind of out of order. Go ahead and identify.
I am attorney for the plaintiff, Mr. Miller.
I'm the witness.
I'm Mr. Charles for defense 1.
I'm attorney for defense 2, Mr. Huffs. It's Mr. Huffs. For the record. Mrs. Skinner, I'm Bill Huffs, and I represent Bechtel, and I'm going to finish your deposition this morning. And you've been sworn before, you understand the procedure, and as I say, I want to just finish up with a couple of questions that I have of you. Now, Mrs. Skinner, I'd like to focus for a moment on your deposition in May of 2004, And I know from reading your deposition you had a conversation with Mr. Armstrong, who told you you were being laid off, right?
Okay, right.
Now, my question to you, ma'am, is did you have at that time a conversation with Mr. Rowling?
No, I did not.
I know you talked with Mr. Rowling sometimes in May of 2004, at which time he asked you to attend a luncheon, and you told him you were not interested in doing that, right?
Well, the timing was so ludicrous. I was standing there with a box of stuff out of my desk, what was left, when he approached me on my way out. I mean, that's not the way you treat people.
I understand, but what I'm interested in is, other than that conversation, when you and he talked about having lunch, okay, did you
Excuse me, I don't recall him having asked me about lunch.
have any other conversations with Mr. Rowling in May of 2004 with regards to your termination?
It was nothing that he said. It was just something that I said. That was the only conversation that I remember having with him.
When was that?
This was my last day of work.
And what did you say?
I told him that I didn't think that much thought had been put into the way I was terminated. There were other things they could have done. They could have thought about job sharing. It was just a very brief conversation. It was just to let him know that things were that could have been done differently.
One of which was job sharing.
Job sharing or just something creative that they didn't even give any thought to.
And what was his response?
Nothing.
No comment to you at all?
Made no comment.
You knew, did you not, that at that time he was in charge of the policy group, right?
I wasn't sure just what, he hadn't been there that long, so I wasn't sure just exactly what his position was.
Did you talk to him at any time about his efforts to find another position for you?
He never approached me on that.
Did you ever approach him about that?
Well, I didn't report to him, so I didn't approach him, and everything happened so swiftly.
There were approximately 18 days in May, as I read the transcript, between the time you were notified and the time that you actually ceased working. During that 18-day period, Mrs. Skinner, what efforts did you make to find another position at Bechtel?
I checked the job bulletin daily, and there was nothing in my field.
Did you talk with anyone else?
No, I did not.
Other than checking the job bulletins, did you make any other efforts to find a job?
At Bechtel or any place else?
At Bechtel.
There wasn't anything posted.
What do you think there was? Why do you think there was nothing posted? Why do you think that's true?
Well, all the open positions were being posted.
There were no open positions, were there?
There were no open positions.
I read your deposition, and I think you told me you had a conversation with Mr. Chambers about this time. And as I understand it, you and he talked about a possible position in the R&E group.
No, that's not a possible position. He just asked me if I wanted him to send my file to possible position or a position that possibly might open, and that would be in addition to other. I believe that was a job that was posted on the job bulletin, which was not my field, which was in an area that was experiencing difficulty, which subsequently I think laid most of their people off.
It too was a part of Bechtel that was contracting. Was that your point?
That's right.
Let me just show you that job posting. I'll have that marked as, just make it Exhibit 1 to this deposition, please. Mrs. Skinner, let me show you Exhibit 1, if you will, and ask you, tell me, if you can tell me what this is.
What are we referring to?
Pardon me?
Which job are you referring to?
The administrative assistant. Can you tell me what this is, Exhibit 1?
This is a job opening in R&D division for someone with an EEO background, affirmative action background.
Was this the position you and Mr. Chambers discussed?
I'm not sure.
Do you see the handwritten notes on the side of it? I think those are yours. This was given to me by the documents that you produced. Does that ring a bell at all with you?
At this point, I'm really not sure.
But you are sure that you had a conversation with Mr. Chambers. He had alerted you, if you will, to the possibility of a position open, right?
Yes, he did. I believe it was R&D, and he did alert me to, well, I don't know if you'd say alert me. He wanted to know if I wanted him to send my file there.
And your answer was what?
I'm not sure just exactly what I told him, that I had heard many conversations on the phone with people from that area who were concerned about the, as you call it, contracting in that area.
So what?
And I felt it was like jumping from the frying pan into the fire.
So am I correct? You told Mr. Chambers, either in words or in substance, don't bother sending my file there?
I'm not sure I said that.